What is reality? Reality is what we believe to be true about the nature of our surroundings. But how do we come to decide that true nature? Do we conceive it completely on our own? Or do other devices gently sway our thoughts onto a pre-decided path? This is the hard question we must all ask ourselves as free humans on this planet. New sculpts your reality.
Reality. Welcome to Reality Brief, home of the dropping things everywhere. How you guys doing tonight? It's another wonderful... Stop. Why is it every time we get ready to do a show, everyone we know tries to call us, text us, message us on Facebook, like, look, you know what I'm doing right now. Stop trying to talk to me.
No, that's a welcome one though. That's our correspondents in Australia checking in with us from the Spooky Action Radio Network. What's going on, guys?
Holler, holler to the spooky boys, Wookie and Sifu. Oh, wait, hold on. So, our guest tonight, you're not actually being heard by anyone right now, Kevin, except for us. So, our guest tonight, Kevin Estrella. Kevin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome.
You had something to say there earlier. You can say it now and everybody will hear you.
Hey, spooky boys. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, so you were just on their show, huh?
Yeah, actually, I listened to the podcast on my way to work this morning. It was a good laugh.
Cool, man. Yeah, they're cool guys, man. I like their show. I definitely I listen to it when I can, man. I don't have a whole lot of time to like listen to radio shows, but when I do, I try to catch an episode or two of theirs because it's definitely a good time. I always said that somebody should like animate it. You know what I mean? And just put the audio of their show over an animation of them, kind of like Dr. Katz or something. You remember that show?
Yeah, the Squiggle Vision.
Yeah.
So who are our sponsors tonight? We got, let's see, the Planet Pontil.
Yeah.
Sponsored
by the entire planet.
They all gave us $1 on Patreon, just like you guys.
What's it? Let's see. Definitely, tonight's show is definitely sponsored by Wawa.
Yeah, thanks Wawa for rescuing Dan from 7-Eleven hell.
Yeah, seriously.
Appreciate that.
Sizzlies are on 2 for $3. Stop by, get them. They're delicious.
Wawa, gas is great. So Kevin, enough of all that crazy. Now you've got some interesting experiences, I honestly don't even know where to start. So I'll just leave that to you, wherever you would like to start at.
Probably the best place to start is at the very beginning.
You know, I've heard that, but sometimes it just, I don't know. So continue then. What was the first thing that ever happened to you, I guess?
Well, let's put it this way. The first thing that ever actually really happened to me actually happened back in 1999, but I didn't understand what happened, and it wouldn't be until about 13 or 14 years later when I would really start to question it and saying, what the heck just happened there? And it took me a while to figure that one out, but that one wasn't as important as I would say the more recent things that had happened. Mm-hmm. Things really, for me, started to develop when I decided to create my band Pyramids on Mars. And I wanted to marry my love of instrumental rock music that Joe Satriani was in the style that Satriani was playing. I wanted to do that. That's what was always been my passion. But I also wanted to marry it with my love and passion for extraterrestrials. And I felt like it was my calling to raise consciousness about the ET presence here on Earth and in the universe, and that they've been here for a long time. So I always felt like that was my purpose, and it frustrated me for years. I'd be say, guys, I'm here. I'm here to help. I want to help, but I never, in my wildest dreams, did I understand that actually was always my life contract, and that was my contract even prior to this birth, and that would be reaffirmed later on. But when I first created Pyramids on Mars, I started writing music, and I had to reinvent myself because I was in a band for a long time, like a regular band with a singer, and we used to jam as a unit, and then we would write music as a unit. So I was always used to that formula, and I had to completely change hats when I became an instrumental artist, because all of a sudden I was the band. I was doing everything. I was playing the drums, writing the drum programming, playing the bass, playing the keyboards, doing the arrangements and all that. So I had to completely reinvent myself, and I really was very proud of the work I did with my first album. But at the same time, there was things that were going on that I didn't realize that I was doing. And what was happening was that I was actually, because I was playing from such a passionate and higher consciousness, that I would not allow any tracks to be laid down unless they were coming from the highest of my being. And in essence, while this was happening, all of a sudden I started having all these ESP experiences where I'd be pinging people. I'd call somebody on the phone and they'd be like, geez, I was just talking about you. Or we were just talking about you and you just called us. Or, all of a sudden I would think of somebody from California and the phone would ring and it would be them. And it just started to become so crazy that I realized, okay, I've got ESP and I cannot deny it anymore. This is like real. Well, I didn't put it all together.
It kind of happened tonight too. I was messaging you on Skype, hey, I'm ready, and you were messaging me like, hey, what's up? At the same time. I don't know if you noticed that, but we sent our messages at the same exact time.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. It was crazy. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack you, man. Go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, so basically, what I discovered was, and this was my biggest UFO experience, it was August. It would happen on August 21st, 2014. And I basically I stepped out on my deck. It was about 10:30 at night in the city of Hamilton. And just as I stepped out on my deck, my neighbor next to me on my right-hand side has this big tree. It's about 100 feet tall. And immediately, within 7 seconds of me stepping on the deck, this object started to come out from behind the tree there. And at first I thought it was a meteor because it was orangish red, glowing like coals. And it had this smoke that seemed to be coming off the top of it and along the bottom of it. And then it finally came into full view, and I realized, no, this is not a meteor because this is moving way too slow and it's really close. And this thing was actually only about 100 yards away from me, and it was only a couple 100 feet off the ground.
Wow!
And really it was very, very close. It was a disc. I would probably estimate it was probably 40 or 50 feet in diameter, and it was a perfect, beautiful disc. Went across the top and along the bottom, very, very smooth. And when it finally came into view, at this point, I still didn't know what I was looking at, because it displayed physics that I had never seen before. And what I meant by that was, this thing was orangish red, glowing like coals, and it had this, looked like mist or smoke that came off the top of it and along the bottom of it. But then what transpired was that it moved across the distance of my backyard. It turned to go south towards Bimbrook, and as it was turning, that light source that was glowing from it, that light source became where it had no light source at all, and it was just a dark object mass in the sky. But simultaneously, while it was moving away, it started opening up this white swirling vortex, like this umbrella kind of thing, in the front of it, like a portal. And then it just disappeared from sight. And I was completely freaked out by this. The other thing that was very strange about this object, and I didn't pick up on this until 2 weeks later, was that this object was two-dimensional. And what I mean by that is that it was like looking at a hole in the sky. It looked like a solar eclipse. So if you picture a solar eclipse, it looks like a hole in the sky. It's got height, it's got width, but it has no depth. And that's what this thing displayed. It had no depth. It just looked like this hole in the sky, tie-dye-ish color. And what I also discovered 6 months afterwards from looking at images of the sun and I finally realized the sun was radiating with plasma, and that is what was actually surrounding this craft, was that it was plasma streaming off the top of it, along the bottom of it, and streaming along the back. And so I was completely freaked out by this thing. I reported it to MUFON, and then I hadn't heard anything about it for almost a year. And then it would be almost a year later when my life would completely change, when these other synchronicities would take place, and then I would discover that I was actually being awakened to a higher purpose. But going back to this ESP thing that was going on, the largest ESP experience that I had in my life actually took place. It was the day before Robin Williams' death. It was August 11th, where he took his life, which is a Monday, but it was the Sunday that I actually saw him dying. I remember it was like doing dishes, and all of a sudden I was overcome with this image in my mind, seeing him dying. It was like playing the movie Bicentennial Man. Ever see that movie?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, where he plays like an android that lives for 250 years, and he gets tired of living and decides to have himself unplugged and die. And the last scene you see, he's lying in bed as the camera's panning away, and he's got this sad smile on his face as the life is leaving him. And that is exactly what was burned in my mind. I saw Robin Williams dying, and I was so overcome with grief and sadness. I couldn't believe what was going on. And I was like, why am I feeling like this? I got to watch this movie right now. I'm so upset. This is just horrible. And it would be almost a little bit more than 24 hours later when I'd find out that he took his life the next day. And then I completely freaked out because I turned to my spouse at the time and I said, my God, I saw him dying yesterday. This is no coincidence. I'm tapping into some kind of higher energy. And then it would be exactly 10 days from that day. August 21st is when that UFO showed up. So I know that there's some kind of connection there.
Well, not to get you sidetracked or anything, but did you have any kind of connection to Robin Williams other than being like a fan maybe? Did you know him personally or anything like that?
No, I didn't. But what I honestly felt was because his energy was and his personality was so strong that he was crying out in so much pain and agony that it was felt telepathically across the world to all those who were sensitive. That's basically what I got from that, because it was I was over. It was like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars when Alderon's blowing this big disturbing force and he has to sit down because his head's spinning. Well, that's exactly what I experienced. It was crazy. But getting back to the whole story, it would be a year later when the first Alien Cosmic Exhibition convention was taking place in Brantford, Ontario. First UFO conference, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I got to find out, who's going to be there." And I saw Stanton Friedman was going to be there, and I was like, I had followed him for years, so I was really excited. And then I saw Grant Cameron, and I didn't know him at the time, but when I saw his presentation, that's when my jaw dropped, and I was completely freaked out. And his presentation was on extraterrestrials and musicians, and why extraterrestrials are contacting musicians to raise consciousness and frequency about the alien presence. And I was just like, oh my God, wow, this is all about me. I'm being called to go see Grant Cameron. This is just freaking crazy. It was the first synchronicity of my life, of that significance, where you realize you're being called. And I was like, oh my God, I'm being called. I have to go and see him. I'm being told to go see him. And when I did, that weekend completely changed my life with the information that came to me. What I found out was that Grant Cameron did a presentation not only on how many musicians have been contacted by extraterrestrials, but also about how musicians are getting downloads of music through, like, basically musical downloads. And music just seems to be coming to them and they don't know where it's coming from. And I realized that's what I've been experiencing all through my writing of my last album, because I didn't feel like I was really writing my music. I was tapping into this consciousness and it was just coming through me. And before I knew it, the song was done and over with, and I was finished. And I also even saw some of my songs literally came in dreams. My song Dream Division, I didn't even write that. That came in a dream, literally.
Wow.
I didn't write that song. I had a dream where I'm watching MTV on TV, seeing Joe Satriani sitting down in a studio being interviewed by some MTV guy, and the guy's like, "Yeah, I heard you're working on a new album. Yeah, you got anything you can play for us?" And Joe's like, "Well, yeah, we got some bed tracks of this new song we played." And he starts fiddling on the board, and he starts playing this song, and I'm listening to it, going, "Wow, this is really cool," because it starts with the guitar comes in, and then the bass comes in doing this off thing, and then the drums come in completely different time signature, and it all worked together like this clock. I'm going, "Wow, that sounds so cool. I wish I could write something like this." And I think, wait a second, Joe never wrote this song. I wake myself up, I go down to the studio and start tracking out the song, and within 3 days the song was written. And I didn't write it. I really didn't. It just came in a dream.
That's amazing, man.
So that was kind of like, which is what Grant Cameron was talking about. Eventually, he'd write a book about music and inspiration and about this phenomena, and I'm actually in that book, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But what I also found out was that next door, MUFON, who had taken my UFO report, I went and up to their table, and I ran into Stu Bundy, who took my report, and I drew pictures of the UFO that I saw because I didn't have a camera at the time. And while he had his back turned, I just took my pictures out and I dropped them on the table. He turns around, looks down at the papers, his eyes grow big. He looks up at me and says, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. We're doing a presentation on you tomorrow." And I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, your case is one of the most authentic cases we come across, and we're doing a presentation on you tomorrow." And I was just like,
"That's crazy."
I mean, I haven't heard from you guys in a year, and now you're telling me this? Like, I was just like, what the heck's going on here, man? And so I asked him, well, how many other people reported that craft? Because it was 10:30 at night, and it was not that late, and I live in the middle of the city, one of the busiest sections of town. There must have been tons of reports of people reporting and seeing it. And he said, well, that's the thing. Nobody else reported it, and nobody else saw it. You're the only one. And at that point, I was scared. I was really scared. I didn't know what that meant, and it was impossible. There was no way a craft that size, only a couple hundred feet off the ground, going over one of the busiest subdivisions in Hamilton, and nobody else saw this thing?
Yeah,
it made no sense. It would be Grant Cameron who explained to me, saying, he said, "Yeah, I saw MUFON's presentation on you. Don't worry, we'll get together tomorrow and we'll talk about it." And so we get together and go and have coffee, and I go through the whole thing again, and I say to him, "How can this be? MUFON is saying that I'm the only one who saw the craft." And as calm as a cucumber, he says to me, "Oh yeah, that happens all the time." Like, what do you mean it happens all the time? He says, "Yeah, one person to see a UFO and nobody else sees it. Yeah, it happens all the time. It's called the Oz effect." I'm like, "What is the Oz effect?" And then he went to explain how other people have had UFO contact where they're driving down a normally busy freeway and all of a sudden they're being chased by a UFO, and there are no cars at all for for 10 minutes. And then the UFO is gone, and all of a sudden cars come back. And finally realized, okay, what's going on here? How come we're stuck in a time loop? And he explained that basically they have the ability of being able to shut down whoever they don't want to have contact with, just to have contact with the people they want to have contact with, and then people are reanimated.
I want to say amazing. I've experienced something like that because back in 2004, I saw a very large TR-3B Astro-type craft over I-64.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't recall seeing anybody else on the road. Now that you bring that up,
this isn't the cheeseburger story, is it, Dan?
No.
Okay.
No, that was a good one too. But no, for real though, seriously, I was coming home back to Hampton from Newport News, and I saw this large triangular object hovering maybe, I want to say, a few hundred to maybe 2,000 feet over the highway.
Yeah.
And it had one of the big white lights in the middle and then a little red light at each point. And it was just kind of lazily spinning through the air. And when I saw that, I don't think anybody else was on the road. And normally that part of 64 is really busy.
Interesting.
Dan, I think what you saw is probably man-made, though.
I mean, it probably was, but, you know, if it was built with alien tech, or, you know, if it was being operated by some faction that had aliens on board. I mean, we know that Noctwaffe works with the Dracos.
Well, so. There are rumors in Deep Black projects that they have the ability to, like, put a neighborhood to sleep or whatever. Yeah. Just target one person. Maybe something like that. It's like a cheap copy of the ET version. It's the Walmart brand.
Yeah,
it's the Walmart. It's the Walmart brand sleep ray. So that's pretty crazy, man. I don't think I've ever really heard of that being a phenomenon. You know, like happening a lot.
I didn't know about it until Grant told me this. You know, this Oz effect they was talking about. But I know what happened with Chris Bledsoe, a friend of mine who's a huge experiencer and very important experiencer, and the same thing happened when they were being chased by a bunch of extraterrestrials, and he went to some neighbors and was knocking and banging on their door, trying to have them let in because they were being chased by these ETs and UFOs, and they never answered the door. And then he found out later on that they were home. So it's like, why did they not answer the door? And we were banging and banging and banging, and they don't remember anything. So it's like they have the ability of mind control. I know that. I mean, they've done it to me so many times. I mean, I'm picked up by the Ponte on a weekly basis. I never remember the nights, but I do know that they've taken me because I have the same symptoms. My signature is I wake up with sand in my bed, and it's crazy. It is. Or I got like red dust on my pillow or red dust in my sheets along with sand. Sometimes there's other objects that I've found in my bed that shouldn't be there, and they can't explain, and I'm going to show you guys later on as well the samples and artifacts that I've got here.
So, I mean, what do you suppose, coming back full of sand, are they taking on a beach day, or, I mean, what do you think they're doing?
They're taking me back to Albuquerque, back to the Sandia Mountain base. Because there's lots of red sand there, red dust. Also, there's volcanic glass, like obsidian glass sand there, and I have found that as well. Sometimes I've found black filaments of obsidian in my bed, and then some other green-looking object that I cannot identify. It's organic, and it seems to have some kind of salt-like formations around edges of it, and it kind of looks like a seed, but it's not a seed. I'll show you it later on because I don't know what it is.
Far out.
Yeah. But they visit me weekly, sometimes multiple times a week. Actually, a lot of times, multiple times a week. There was one week I put on Facebook. I'm going to get a T-shirt made. I survived 4 alien abductions in 1 week. 4. It was too much, man. My sleep schedule has been so messed up. I tell you.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm surprised they let you remember it. Like that.
They don't. He's saying
they
the
don't.
only way he's knowing is he's finding stuff in his bed, artifacts from being taken and stuff.
So why go through if they're going to give you souvenirs? Why go through with the mind wipes? You know what I mean?
It's part of their protocol. I don't always understand all of it, but they do have their protocols in regards to how they operate, where I think it's also for security reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So that if I was ever taken or my labbed, if I don't have memories and don't remember anything, it's going to be more difficult for them to get the memories out of me. Because if I had the memories, because remember, these extraterrestrials are telepathic, and they can read you, and they can go inside you and extract information from you. But if it's at an unconscious level, hidden in your alpha theta state, perhaps that's more secure than this. That's basically the way I'm thinking it, because you have to realize that they have high security. Like, the things that these beings can do are so well beyond our technologies. We are infants when it comes to understanding what they actually can do.
Yeah,
so why do you think they are taking you?
They've been working and enhancing my consciousness, and I also think they've been upgrading my DNA, because the first conscious memory that I have of the Ponte Sandia crew visiting was back just before April, and Sue Walker, their telepath, I was talking to her, and she said, "You're on the schedule for a pickup, and you'll know that they've come if there's an object that's been moved in your apartment." And so thus, there was one night where I was sleeping. It was a Wednesday night, and I heard some noise down below my apartment that didn't sound like natural. It sounded like there was somebody down there. I woke up, I looked down, I couldn't see anything, went back to sleep, and then around sometime early in the morning, I was woken to the feeling of liquid draining out of my left ear. And it startled me, it woke me up, and I was rubbing my ear going, what the heck was that? There's water coming out of my ear. I didn't go swimming. Mm-hmm. And then I went back to sleep. Woke up the next morning, went to work, came home, and I was walking past, just over here actually. If you can you see that statue over there?
Yeah, on the shelf.
Yeah, I walked past him, and he was facing against the wall, and I was just like, "What the heck's going on here?" I was like drinking last night and dropped him and put him back on the shelf. Wait a second, I wasn't drinking, and I wouldn't have put him back, backwards anyway.
Yeah.
And oh no, they must have moved him. And so I tweeted on Twitter, because they're using Twitter, and I took a picture of it and said, "You guys know anything about this?" And then Drudy came back, and she said one of the trainees said that he was strangely cute. They apologized for not putting him back properly. And I was like, oh my God, they did come. I was so freaked out. It was just amazing.
So
and then I started,
go ahead. Tell me more about them using Twitter.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Well, they've been using Twitter now since at least 2016, and it was my friend Cale who introduced me and told me that they were using Twitter, and so I decided to check this out. I was like, what real extraterrestrial is using Twitter? This is crazy. And so I go and I check it out. I'm following them for a couple days and reading their tweets and reading their back tweets and trying to get an idea of is this BS or not. But it really seemed to be genuine, coming from some different personalities, and just the way they spoke and what they talked about and how they conducted themselves. It seemed like there was something that was really going on here, and it really seemed legit to me. And then I started sending some private messages to them, direct messages, and I was getting some direct messages back from Teeny and Drudy, and I was really starting to develop a friendship with them, a real personal friendship, and it was awesome. And then they said that they wanted to. It wasn't an official interview, but they said that at some point they would be setting me up with the interview to talk with their telepath, so that they can get a better sense of who I am, because they'd like to get to know people. But little did I know that they also have the ability of telepathically checking somebody out and pinging them to see if they're right-minded or not. And this is what I would find out later on, which is really a funny, amazing story. And so I got to talk to Sue Walker, and we became friends immediately. We really hit it off together, and I really got to know her really well. And we developed a friendship really quickly, and I got to find out more about who the Sandia group was and how she discovered them, and really get the backstory and realize this is the real deal. This is just incredible. But actually, I don't think that interview happened until after Radar freaked me out. Yeah, I can't remember what happened. Anyway, what happened was, when I realized that this was real, back on my website, for my Pyramids of Mars website, I have these T-shirts for sale called ET shirts, because I had an experiencer who I had interviewed, Rob Fullington, and actually done these designs, drew this artwork of the extraterrestrials that he met, and they enhanced his abilities to draw, and we created these T-shirts based on his drawings. But this tweet came up one day from Radar, and you have to understand, Radar is really cheeky, and he's really funny. But it says, "Geez, Kev, we really got to get you some better models for your T-shirts, because the ones that you got are really serious and scary looking." And so I'm like, I was kind of insulted. I was like, Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I know 4 new models for my next T-shirt because Sue had already drawn portraits of them, right? So, like, hey, we could use this. And this is all happening live on Twitter. And so then this tweet comes from Tilcom saying, yes, we would like you to make T-shirts of us. That would be a wonderful idea. And I said, okay, I kind of have an idea, the 4 of you on one T-shirt, but I have the people to do it. But here's the catch. I want you guys to come up with the caption. And so I'm sitting here thinking, what would be a good caption for a T-shirt with the 4 of them on it?
What would
oh
you
my
do
God!
For a Mindwipe Prime.
It was instantaneous. I thought, oh my God, it's so simple. We're here. That's it. In brackets, because they're already here. Like, that'd be just amazing. And so, like, this and so then about 2 minutes later, this tweet comes up, and I was thinking, you know what? I'll bet you Radar is going to come up with the caption. And I didn't know what he was going to come up with. And he actually did tweet back, and it was him. And he said, "We're here, bracket, Radar," with this big smiley face. And I'm like, oh my God, I was just thinking that. How did you know that? And then this other tweet comes up right afterwards saying, you mean bracket, gasp, you mean telepathy works? Who knew? And then at that point, I was just like, oh my God, did he just telepathically read me? And I said that. I said, did you just? And then he said, dude, you're easy to read, and dude, get used to it.
Does that ever creep you out, man? Like, these guys could just tap into your head at any time and listen to your thoughts?
That's actually a really good question, because that became a philosophical topic of debate 6 months later. Because I had told that story on Facebook, and somebody else piped up and said, well, if that was me and they telepathically tapped into me, that would be the most grossest obstruction of my personal self. I would never accept anything like that. That is totally uncalled for, of going inside me and doing that. And so then I thought about it and think, you know what? These beings, these Ponti, they already knew that. Not only was he able to read me telepathically, but he was able to go inside my heart and see what I truly felt, and knew that I would not be offended or hurt in any way of him coming out publicly and saying, yes, I was able to read you, because they would break their protocols. They have 3 protocols: cause no fear, do no harm, and leave no trace. That is their protocol for any visitation. So he knew that somehow, telepathically, because telepathy is communicated on multiple levels at the deepest meanings, and it's communicated on an emotional wavelength, he already knew that ahead of time. So there was so much to learn from that one little tweet of what the relationship that I had, this personal relationship I had with Radar and the gang. And it also happened again too, where I've learned that they're able to tap into our deeper subconscious levels, and how that happened was, I have 2 conscious recalls of where they actually allowed me to remember their visits, and one of them was PETA visiting me here in my apartment. I remember I fell asleep on my couch. And I remember waking up to the sound of 2 feet landing a few feet away from me. Now, my eyes were still closed, and I wasn't moving. And I heard the feet land. He walked up to me, and he gently put his arm underneath my neck. And then with his other arm, he put it under my legs. And then it was PETA, and he gently picked me up and held me in his arms like you would a child. And it was incredible. And I gave him back a telepathic hug of light that I remember that they had given me when I had met them in Ozark, and that was actually the first recall of actual conscious recall of visitation, when they visited me when I was in Ozark, Arkansas. But I gave him back this telepathic hug of light, and he actually moaned in acknowledgement, feeling it. And then he put me down, And then I looked at him, and I was so excited, and I was talking to him, and then he started to change his appearance, and he started to make his body look like, I recognized it. It was actually a stormtrooper Halloween costume that my kids had worn at Halloween 5 years ago. But he made his body look like that. And it's like, okay, where is he getting this information from? I didn't I kind of recognized the look. This is what they do. They'll purposely change their appearance into something more comfortable for us. So he actually went into me, pulled out a memory from 5 or 6 years ago from Halloween, of a pleasant memory of my kids wearing this stormtrooper outfit, and he made himself look like a stormtrooper.
Now, this particular race, these are Zetas?
Yeah, they're Zetas.
You know, it's kind of weird. Are you familiar with the Betty and Barney Hill abduction at all?
Oh yeah.
So we did a show on the anniversary. We were playing regression tapes and stuff, and Barney's regression. He saw there was humans with the aliens, or with the ET. There was one ET, and it was doing kind of like what you're saying to him, trying to get him to calm down. But that, obviously they ended up abducting him. And this is something that you don't really hear about in the stuff you watch on TV or Netflix, whatever, the documentaries that you normally see. We found this directly from the regression hypnosis, and it was definitely sounded like he was describing a telepathic contact. He was saying it's an Irishman, but it's not. And then he just kept going on about those eyes and stuff. And I'm wondering the history of this group. Have they ever been involved in anything like that, years ago? And what he described, Barney, unfortunately, was German officers, like World War II style, like SS officers, in his regression. He called them German Nazis.
German Nazis that were on board the craft with the
ET. And I'm not saying it was a Zeta because I don't know. A lot of those races, to us humans look the same. I'm just going to put it out there. They do.
According to some of the people we've had on the show before, gray type hominids are pretty ubiquitous. They end up coming from quite a few places.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of grayish looking ETs, with large eyes. That
some of them are more gray, some of them are more green. Some of them, their eyes have pupils.
Tall ones, small ones.
Some of them, their eyes are all black.
But yeah, I'm not saying that it was that at all. I'm not, I'm just wondering if you know anything about their history here on the planet, and have they been involved with anything like that before? Is this like a breakaway group from another group, or?
Well, what I do know is that there are different groups, and there are also groups that are manufactured here on Earth, taken from Zeta biology, and then they're grown, and then they're then controlled like robots. So
would that be a hybrid, like a human Zeta hybrid, or would that just be like the gray kind of?
That's more like my lab. That's more like an MK Ultra or my lab project that are working with.
Send in the clones.
Yeah, they're not the real ETs. And when I was with Sue Walker and Otter at the Stargate to the Cosmos, that was a conversation that she had with Tilcom not too long ago. And that's why Tilcom is so offended when people refer to them as aliens. And he made it very clear. He says, the ones who are manufactured on this planet, who are these robots who are working with these, not so, more like, for self, not for others groups, these cabal people. And that's why you'll sometimes see military people involved in these. That sounds more like MK Ultra to me. But what he said is that those grays are not real. They're empty. They're not real. They're grown. They're chipped so that they're robot controlled. And he said those are the aliens. We are the real extraterrestrials. Right. And that's what pisses him off the most. Is that people think, and they're the ones who are doing the bad stuff, and we're getting blamed for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know who Benny or Barney Hill were involved with. I really don't. I can't really.
I don't think anybody really does.
I'm guessing Nachtwaffen, given the nature of Barney's testimony.
I mean, it is.
Well,
and you gotta figure this was the late 50s.
Yeah.
So space Nazis wasn't really a thing in the late 50s.
Well, but it was though, because
it was. I'm not saying like historically it wasn't a thing. What I'm saying was in popular culture and media, like space Nazis is kind of like a popular culture thing now, almost. Like you got those Iron Sky, and it's almost like ingrained in the culture to a degree. But it wasn't
there's a lot of truth to that now.
Yeah, no, I know, and I'm not dismissing
52 is when they buzz bombed DC, right?
My point in saying that is that it wasn't part of the culture then, so it's not like, it was really something strikingly strange to be heard. It's the late 50s. War's been over for a long time. All the Nazis are supposed to be gone. They're not supposed to be flying around in spaceships abducting people with ETs. So I don't know. It's interesting. That's probably the biggest piece of evidence, I think, that I've come across. If you can consider a hypnosis regression testimony evidence of, definitely a breakaway German group in space.
Yeah, from what we've heard, and the whole thing with Project High Jump and at Antarctica and all that took place too.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this breakaway German group, and they had reverse engineered ET technology too that took out.
And they were in telepathic contact because the Thule Society would kind of like grabbed all the secret societies in Germany and like mashed them into one, and then they had little different groups, and they started the Nazis. They put Hitler in power.
Vril.
And then they had the Vril, which was the offshoot of the females, and they were the ones allegedly channeling some type of ETs to get the schematics and the data and stuff to build these craft. So, none of that's, I just can't really point to one solid thing, but it's just a lot of things that stack up that kind of make it look like that. You can't be like, it wouldn't, I don't know if it would so much hold up in a court of law. You know what I mean? It holds up in my mind, definitely, but
there's just so many pieces, and so many, as everything's so fragmented, trying to make sense of what's really going on.
And there's so much stuff going on too outside of that. You've got your ET friends here, and I'm sure there's tons of other ones, and then different programs, black operations, so. And then everybody's, like you said, trying to do something, blame it on somebody else. You got military types going around abducting people with an ET clone body, and then giving them the screen memory that they're being abducted by aliens and taken away or whatever and being experimented on. That's humans.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a great deal of that going on too. Not just with those groups. With all kinds of stuff. I'm sure there's ETs playing on other ETs. There's just so many of them that it couldn't not be like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know this group that you are in touch with is positive from what I can tell. They don't seem to have any kind of nefarious agenda. But
no, they're very positive. They're very transparent, and they're very, very loving and very caring.
I've tried to remote view them though, and it's kind of hard. Like, I got a vision of the Sandia Mountains, but it felt like there was a barrier or something up. Like, there was some sort of veil that I just couldn't punch through. You
won't be able to remote view it.
All I could see is like the mountains from a distance and like the heat shimmering off the sand. And
Well, let's put it this way: Sue Walker tried to remote view them recently.
And it didn't happen, huh?
She found herself, she was looking in somewhere, it looked like an eating area, and all of a sudden one of them looked at her and went like, no, you can't be looking this way, and basically walked up to her and covered her face.
Wow.
While she was remote viewing them.
Well, speaking of eating, so what do these guys like to eat?
Oh, everything that we do.
I hear what's it on Spooky Action? They said they don't eat a whole lot of meat. They don't really consume like red meat like we do, but.
No, they don't eat red meat. They eat fish and they eat vegetables. So they basically are pescatarian. I think that's what they call it.
Any poultry?
No. Basically, like fish and others. And vegetables and fruits and grains and stuff like that. So they like pizza. they love pizza. They eat all kinds of stuff that we eat, as long as it's not like red meat.
Right.
So. I know the girls like sweet stuff like sherbet and ice cream and chocolate and sweets and that too. They like that too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I mean, do they just hang out in their complex most time? Do they ever like walk among us? Anything like that you're aware of?
I don't know if they walk among us, but I have heard that they take advantage of Halloween.
I can see that. Yeah, if they can make themselves look like a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely can tell you, in my experience, working third shift at various convenience stores, I've definitely seen, and I know it sounds like a joke, but I mean this serious as a heart attack. Like, I've had people come into my store and just been like, that guy's an off-worlder.
There's no question about it.
Yeah, like no question about it. Like that guy is not from this planet.
And it wouldn't surprise me either because we have such a huge military presence in the area that we're at. There's bases everywhere. I think we're the largest military port on the East Coast.
Where are you guys?
Norfolk. I mean, we're in Hampton, but it's right next to Norfolk. It's Southeast Virginia.
Yeah, the whole Hampton Roads, Tidewater.
There's everything here. We've got, building facilities north of Grumman. Just all kind. We got NASA Langley right there. It's like the dead in the center of everywhere you don't want to be.
Yeah, Air Force bases, naval bases, shipyards, naval weapons stations.
NATO command is there. It's like this whole area is just like loaded with everything you can possibly imagine.
Stuff like that. Like Camp Perry is right off of the interstate, and if you accidentally turn the wrong way and go into Camp Perry, they walk up to you with they basically pull their guns and they're like, turn around.
They're playing out there, man.
Nice. I know people who've gone on Camp Perry to I knew a guy who was a carpenter, right? And him and his crew, they got pulled onto Camp Perry one day, and they loaded them into the back of a van, right? And you couldn't see out of the van. They drove maybe about 10, 15 minutes, and when they got to the building they were in, they were basically, at gunpoint herded out of the van, and they were told to look down at their boots and don't look around.
Did he say they had to wear the ID badge over their heart?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they could shoot you right in your heart.
Yep. And when they were inside the building working, they said just keep your eyes on what you're working on and don't look away, don't look around. And if, if they turn their heads to one of their coworkers to ask them something, they'd be like, hey, eyes on your work.
And if you heard someone talking, because I have some friends that did some contracting on military bases too, if you would hear somebody talking, you had to immediately leave the room. It's like, places that have secret and top secret clearance levels to be in or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can get contracting, so you can go in and fix the stuff for them or whatever. But if they start talking about anything, you gotta leave. You can't hear nothing, man. They will kill you. It's crazy. But yeah, so that's what we're smack dab in the middle of it. So, if there is any kind of ET co-workers going on with the military, they're definitely walking around visiting Dan's 7-Eleven.
Well, and I think one of the times one of those guys was in Navy fatigues, but he was clueless. He had no idea about basic stuff around here, things that I forget what it was, but at the time it seemed really glaring, and it was like, wait, how do you not know that? What?
Yeah, they sometimes can give themselves away like that. I had that experience at the Alien Cosmic Exhibition 2 years ago, where I was with my friend Nancy Tremaine, and she's a big-time experiencer, and we both actually together, we wished and manifested. We say, we know that, ETs can show up at these conferences. We would like to meet some. And no more than 5 minutes after we had made that wish at the restaurant, we came across the parking lot, and there was these two individuals who were in the foyer who had just arrived, and they're like, "Oh, we just got here, and we're so glad to see you." And Nancy's like, "Oh yeah, where'd you come from?" And his wife's like completely disheveled. She's wearing these trousers, clothes like they came from the 70s. She's got no makeup on, no jewelry, and she just turns and says, "We came a long way."
We are from France.
We are from France.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
And
man.
the long and short of it was over that whole day, we ran into them 3 times, and it was by the end of the weekend we finally realized that they were not human. And what gave it away was that later that night when I went to have drinks and beer with Grant Cameron, and Nancy was there, and then Nancy said, "Oh my God, they're coming back." And before I knew it, the guy had come over to me and give me a big slap in the back, and he said, "Thanks, we're so glad that we got to meet you, and I'll see you back on the ship." And I'm looking at him thinking, okay, this guy's really lost his mind.
Yeah, man.
And then he waddled away. He didn't walk. He did this strange kind of shuffle, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? And it was later that Monday when Nancy and I put it together, and we finally realized, piecing the things together, that they were not human. They were pretending, they were trying so hard to be human and just fit in and check the place out, and then it was a test. It was a complete test for us. And I felt like crap. I felt so horrible and ashamed of myself that I judged them based upon their looks. We had asked for ET contact, and we got it, and we rejected them. Now, what I did find out afterwards, because Nancy and I were we were so upset by what we did, that I was driving my car, and I said to her, "Okay, I'm just going to telepathically say out loud to them that we're very sorry for what we did. We learned our lesson. We will never judge a Star Nation being ever again by their appearance." And just as I had said that, all of a sudden, this freak hailstorm came out of nowhere, and I didn't know what the heck had happened. I told Nancy, "I gotta hang up the phone. I gotta hang up the phone right now. I got this freak storm." And so I hang up the phone because I said, "Please, if you heard me, please give us a sign." That was the last thing I said. And then a minute later, all of a sudden, this hailstorm came. And then I'm driving, and I look at my phone, and I see Nancy's responding back to me saying, "Oh my God, oh my God." And I'm like, "What?" And then she said, "Look at the time that we hung up our phone call at." It was 5:55 p.m.
Oh, trips.
Yep.
That's an angelic number, and it actually had a message. And when I looked it up, it said that great things are going to be coming your way. So that was the message. They heard us. Where'd this hailstorm come out of nowhere? Because it was a sunny day. There was no clouds. All of a sudden, a hailstorm showed up, and they hang the phone up. How do you explain that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get too far away from it, I wanted to kind of go back to the thing you were talking about, the liquid in your ears. You had said something in your interview with Grant Cameron about black goo. So now, were they putting black goo into you, or were they taking black goo out of you?
They were removing toxic substances from my brain. So what happened was that after that liquid drained out of my ear, and I noticed that the statue had moved, I put the two together, realizing, wait a second, what was that drained out of my ear? I better go check and see, look at my pillow. And right there in my pillowcase, right where my ear was this red stain. Mm-hmm. And then I put the two together, that there was liquid that came out of my ear. And it was not water, it was something else, because there was this reddish, it looked kind of like blood, but it was more brownish red. Mm-hmm. But what I noticed was that over the next several days, my urine was smelling putrid. It smelled like metallic. It smelled like strange metallic chemicals.
Like asparagus pee?
worse. Yeah, that's kind of close. Yeah, but it was a little worse than that. But kind of, yeah, that kind of putrid smell.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. I was like, oh, what the heck did I eat? But this continued. But I also noticed that my ears were really sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
and they were a little bit swollen. But from the Friday to the next Friday, by the next Friday, my consciousness had completely changed and cleared. My areas of my brain had been activated before, and I was able to consciously activate them like I had never done in my entire life. My consciousness had been completely changed. And I realized, oh my God, whatever was in my head, they flushed it out. They flushed out all the fluoride, they flushed out all the heavy metals, and whatever else is in our foods to poison us and keep us dumbed down, they flushed it out. And I had the evidence from that liquid, from that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now the other cool thing was that they redid the whole process again about a month later, because once again I found another blood stain or whatever stain on my pillow again. And by that time, when that cleared, I had a constant connection to a constant telepathic connection. My consciousness was always activated, and I felt connected to everything at all points, at all times. And they've continued to develop this and work with me with different areas of my mind to help activate this consciousness ability. And I would remember one time I was able to one day focus a lot more, put more pressure in my pineal gland area and my amygdala, which is what you focus on for telepathy. I was able to focus more concentration, and I could actually feel the pressure there. Or if I concentrated, I could move the pressure up to the top of my head. About 3 weeks ago, before I went to the Stargate to the Cosmos, actually it was the beginning of October, that was the most heaviest download that they had given me, or whatever consciousness they had changed. They had actually worked on my brain stem. And what happened was I woke up around 2:30 in the morning, and my brain stem felt like it had been shot with a laser gun or some kind of stun gun. It was just freaking, I was out of it. I felt like I'd been hit by a laser beam, and it took me a whole week to recover from that brain stem, whatever they had done to that brain stem. But then all of a sudden, I was able to consciously activate my brain stem through thought at any point, and I've never been able to do that before.
Whoa, that's
So
all right.
they're working with me, and I'm able to do all this stuff now. Partially, I know a lot of it has to do with my music, with being able to, because they've been working with me when Teeny taught me last year and explained, well, you realize that music can be communicated telepathically. And I'm like, you have to teach me this. I want to learn how to do this. And so she's been working with me to help me communicate music on a telepathic level.
That's
Nobody
pretty
wants to
interesting.
hear my music telepathically.
When I write music, a lot of times I'll hear it in my head first, and then I'll play it, and that's how a lot of stuff gets started.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting. I've asked a couple of my friends about it, and they're like, "Nah, man, I just play, and eventually find something I like." I'm like, "No, it's different, man. I just hear it in my head."
Well, I wanted to ask, Kevin, are you an occultist or a practitioner of magic of any sort? And if so, did you notice a change in your practice or in your ability to manifest stuff through magic after all this started?
No, I don't do any kind of occult stuff or black magic or anything of that nature. No. The stuff that the energies that I work with are a very high positive energy of.
Well, not all magic is
yeah,
evil. Let me throw
it's
that out right
not all
off the
black
jump.
magic.
Okay, yeah.
There's,
I'm just saying. Yeah, the energies that I work with are my own energies.
I myself would much rather work with, natural energies or planetary energies or angelic entities than any sort of demonic stuff or, devil magic or any of that.
Blood magic, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't really, that's not really my bag of cats.
No, it's not mine either. I mean, my musical inspiration comes from Baroque classical music. like Bach and Vivaldi and these much more angelic type of music, a very high vibration, and that's where I get my inspiration from. I would, that's where my main inspiration comes from, is from Bach and Vivaldi, and I've spent the last 7 years trying to make my guitar sound more like a violin than a guitar.
Try the you tried out the pedal called a Super Ego.
No, I've never heard of that.
It's
What is it?
made by Electro Harmonics. It's a it's kind of like the freeze pedal, but it adds like the synth element to it, and you can get some kind of stringy sounds out of it if you tweak with the settings on it.
Oh, really?
I think it was about $120 or something.
I
use the hell out of it, but the music that I make now, most people would consider noise.
I was pretty much raised on Holst and Mahler.
See, I'm from the school of Yngwie Malmsteen.
Mm.
So
I watch you play, man. You're incredible.
I just like Satriani is kind of like the foundation of what I do as far as style wise, but I play more like Yngwie Malmsteen. And if I'm practicing, people would swear that I was Yngwie Malmsteen. I mean, I've got a Malmsteen Strat over here that I built myself, and that guitar is just a complete monster. That guitar, I just love that guitar.
The one video I was watching, I think I watched 2 songs. It was like a compilation. After the one I watched you play, live, and it almost reminded me of some like epic black metal, man. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then the next song that I listened to, it had like an early Genesis feel, man. I was like, wow, this is crazy, man. You go from black metal to Genesis. It's all kind of the same technical, you know what I mean? Just a little different. Yeah, it was great, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've got like a lot of influences come through. Because like on my own band, I can do whatever I want,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'll listen to a song from an artist that I like, and I'll want to write a song in the style of that artist. So I'll make a note of that. I'll think there'd be a song that'll really inspire me. So I say, okay, I'm going to write a song that's in the style of this song, and so I'll do that. I mean, a great example on my last album, Echo Cosmic, there's a song called Heaven's Gate. And that song was completely inspired by Iron Maiden's Summer in Time album.
Right on.
And so if you listen to the song Heaven's Gate, part of the guitar, the lead guitar or the rhythm guitar came from that song, but then the whole chorus section, where there's a dual guitar solo that goes on in the middle section, that's all from the song inspired from the Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, that song from that album.
Man,
And
no, go ahead.
yeah, and then there's a song I'm working on right now, which is inspired by Iron Maiden too. I could probably play it for you if you wanted to hear it.
Well, actually, you sent me some songs, and I can't remember where you sent them to. I was looking for them. I was going to play them during the break.
Okay.
Do you remember where you sent them to me? I'm sorry, man. I just looked in both of our chats, and I looked in my email, and I didn't see it in there.
Well, I got something here I could play over the phone. You might be able to listen to.
Here they are.
Which is, I'm gonna fire this up, and this is a song I'm working on right now, which is actually inspired by Iron Maiden, and it's just an introduction. It's just the introduction to the song, but it's really freaking cool.
Yeah, go for it, man. And I did find them. I got Battle for Rome and Heaven's Gate, and I'll play those on the break for the audience.
All right, cool. Here, I'll play this for you. This is the song is called Blood Moon. And maybe you guys like Iron Maiden?
I'm not a giant fan, but when I was coming up with my '80s baby, so my uncles and stuff were like super into Iron Maiden, so
I'm cool.
I know a lot of the songs, but it's not like I throw out an Iron Maiden CD. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right.
I cut my teeth on Black Sabbath myself.
I love Black Sabbath. Okay, here's this is just the introduction of Blood Moon. that's just kind of an idea, but I'm
Yeah,
working
man.
on it.
That's badass.
I totally hear Maiden in that all day, man. I got what you're saying, man.
I dig it, man.
And you guys, you want to check some more of his stuff out, you can go to pyramidsonmars.com. He's got all his albums and everything up there, and lots of other stuff, interviews, links to his radio show, all that. We are coming up on the break. That's about an hour in, so we're gonna take a quick 10-minute break or so, and when we get back we'll continue, and maybe Kevin will want to show us some of the
Artifacts.
Yeah, the artifacts from his abduction experience.
I got one quick question before we go to break. When disclose, I heard on Spooky Action when Miss Walker was talking to Sifu and Wookie, they said that we could expect like public disclosure, like everyone's gonna know somewhere around 2020, 2024, something like that.
2021.
Okay, yeah, there you go. So, how do you think that disclosure and, the opening up of the realization that we're not alone in the universe is going to affect the daily life of every man, woman, and child on the planet? Like, how do you think it's going to change things for the average person? Because I remember hearing, there's a saying in in Buddhism, there's a saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Grant Cameron had a great way of putting it. He said that after disclosure, nothing will change and everything will change. And what he meant by that was that everything will change, but you still have to figure out why you're here on the planet, because you decided to be here. And you have to remember why you decided why you wanted to be born. So the thing is, everybody and everything, the whole paradigm of everything is going to change when the veil is lifted, and these powers that have been in control all this time, who have controlled the information, who have brainwashed us, who have taken away our history, and who us remembering who we truly are and where we belong with our star family. Nothing is going to be the same. Nothing will ever be the same.
Yeah.
But life is going to be so much better because of what we'll be able to what we will realize what our limitations have been because of those powers that have been pushing us down.
Right on. Well, yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right, so we're going to come up on that break. I'm going to play a little bit of more of Kevin's music for you guys out there listening right now. Like I said, it's pyramidsonmars.com. I'll go ahead and pull that up again if I can find it.
And if you happen to, be a member of another star nation that happens to be listening, feel free to call in. Our number is 757-528-8130.
And
we will be here from you.
We will be opening up the phones next hour at some point, too. And also, as always, you can ask questions in the YouTube chat, and we'll get to them to the best of our ability.
And I would genuinely be honored if anybody from Ponte were willing to try to contact me telepathically. And
Radar, come share some snarkiness with us, man, because we're snarky, too. We'll get along just great.
Be careful what you ask for.
No, I've thought about it a lot, and yeah, I'm down. I think I'm ready.
All right, let me see about these files here now. Oh, God, where'd they go? I just had them. Oh, my God, I got too much stuff on my computer, guys. See, this is what happens. You get a computer with like 80,000 terabytes of space, and then you just got like pictures of cats and pictures of Dan dressed up in a leopard suit with. Here, check it out. Like,
oh yeah, you're funny, bro. You're real funny.
That's funny, man. You see that, Kevin?
That's awesome.
We went through a little war a long time ago where we kept doing that to each other.
It was good times.
Yeah, it was good times. Okay, where did it go? I'm sorry for this, man. This will work. Heaven's Gate.
There we go.
All right, guys, we'll see you in a little bit.
All right, I'm going to go find my stuff. I'm going to get lined up.
Sorry, guys, got the next song coming right up here in just a second, and it is entitled, as soon as I can find it, Battle for Rome, Pyramids on Mars. Oh, got muted. No, get off mute. Hey guys, welcome back to hour 2. Kevin will be with us just in a second as soon as I unmute his audio feed. Sorry guys, I should have did that beforehand. Hey Kevin, you with us?
I'm here.
Hey, thanks for sticking around through that. Whew. We take a lot. People always ask, "What do you do on break?" Not your business. We take a break. What do you think we're doing, man? It gets tiring sitting there, especially when it's me and him, just me and him.
I usually smoke a cigarette and pee.
So anyway, guys, this is the point where we would normally be like, you can check us out on Facebook and all the other places. You can't. So, but
yeah, and if if you want to check out our Patreon or our Bandcamp, we're certainly not going to stop you.
Soon, see, right now you can go to realitybrief.net and it just takes you to Facebook, or it may even take you to this live stream right here. But very soon there will be a webpage there in this place, and you'll be able to find everything so nicely. It's gonna be great. So, Kevin, what you got there, man? Is that thing scalloped?
Sure is.
Oh, look at that.
Yep. This is my Malmsteen Stratocaster.
Nice.
I custom built this thing myself. It's the body is an '88 Fender Stratocaster for 1988, and this is a PAF Pro Satriani pickup, and then I have the HS3 Malmsteen pickup here. This pickup completely smokes. It's crazy. Yeah. It's also got the staggered holes. Yeah. The paint job itself, I did the paint job myself. It's actually crop circles. So I found a manual in regards to how to do custom paint jobs, and so I decided to do this with the guitar. And here's the back of the guitar here.
Oh, nice.
It's got all these crop circles all over it. And actually, if you notice this one right here, that's actually my DNA double helix. That's on my neck. And that was long story behind that, but that was a download that was given to me in a dream, which would eventually become the signature the signature symbol that be recognized with me with my guitar necks. And so the other amazing things about this guitar is it's got a scallop neck, it's got the brass nut right there.
You don't see them too often anymore.
No, and the guy did a fantastic job of inlaying it. And I actually, this is not an original Malmsteen neck. This is a knockoff from China. It only cost me like next to nothing to get the neck, and then I sanded it down and I finished it myself in an amber, with an amber gloss. There's about 24 different coats on that, and then high gloss on the neck. This guitar just screams. It's unbelievable. I actually had to have the body cut away to actually have the neck put in place. That was the only way to be able to do it, and it just complete. This guitar is insane. This is one of my favorite guitars to play. The tone on this thing is it's crazy. It's completely Malmsteen. This thing has more sustain than a Les Paul. And the reason I was able to do that is because if you take the neck and you loosen up the bolts, if you give the neck, if you push the neck, you'll hear the neck crack. And what happens is that it's actually flushing the neck flat against the wood, and then you tighten it up, and there's no space in between the neck and the guitar, which gives a complete sustain, and there's no energy that's lost. The other thing about this guitar, and people don't understand, they think Malmsteen must be able to play really fast because his action must be really low and close to the fretboard. That's actually not the case. It's actually the opposite. He has his guitar set so the strings are really high off the fretboard, like a violin player. Which the reason for that is because it gives us this guitar ultimate sustain. And so I have my action set really high. If you can see how much space is between here and the fretboard, it's actually a really high action. But I learned how to play it that way, and it doesn't bother me at all. But this guitar is just like crazy. Yeah, so I thought I would share that off.
Yeah, it'd be awesome if you can get that that neck pickup to float over the neck too, like a Les Paul does. That would probably improve it even more. Well, at this point you've already had the neck made and all that. It's not like you can do it now, but you know what I'm talking about, like how they have the neck mounted in and it's got that flute that comes off of it, and then the pickup lays over top of it. It's typically a humbucker there.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah. I've got a Les Paul too, and that's actually I'll be playing a lot of that on my new album, because I used to my other band, we were huge like really influenced by Tool, and so we had a real Tool sound to our music, and so my Les Paul is tuned down to low, not a low D, but actually a whole half step even lower than that, to low C. And that guitar just kicks ass. It's like the sound on it is incredible. So more of the music that guitar sound, it actually sounds more like Devin Townsend. You know Devin Townsend?
I know I've heard the name, but I can't.
Okay, Strapping Young Lad.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's his newer project band was Devin Townsend, so that guitar has more of that kind of a sound.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So we're
So you got some nifty artifacts for us, huh?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, there's actually a lot more than I even suspected. So every time that I've woken up and I've got dirt in my bed, I will collect all that sample into one area of the bed, and then I use Scotch tape and I'll pick up all the pieces of it, and then I'll tape it together so it's all sealed, and then I write the date of it just to make sure that I've got all that. And I didn't realize how many times I've been picked up. I got like 18 samples here, so I'm going to show you. This is all the stuff I've got here to show you.
Wow. Hold on, let me get this on the big screen. Or the bigger screen. It's a lot of stuff. So, I mean, tell me about, the composition of this stuff. It's just mostly just sand, or what about that one real weird thing you were talking about? It kind of looks like a sea, but you weren't quite sure what it is.
Yeah. Tell me if you. I'm not sure if it's reflecting. Can you see this?
I could see it, but you can't really make out too much detail on it. So
it just kind of looks like a pebble.
With the camera that you're using, it's probably better.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. I don't know what this is. It's organic in some nature, but it almost looks like it has like when salt dries, it leaves like residues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it has that around the edges, but it's light material. I have no idea what it is, but I found it under my pillow. Now the funny thing was that I found it under my pillow, the same material the night before, and I thought it was just some kind of animal poop, so I discarded it and threw it away. But then when it showed up the next day, I was like, oh, I think I wasn't supposed to throw that out. That was some kind of evidence, so I actually collected it this time.
At least they gave you another shot at it.
Yeah, at least they gave me another shot at it. Yeah, so I have no idea what that is. So each of these is a collection of dirt and sand and whatever else was in the bed that I was lying in, that I collected, and then I put it into, I sealed it in tape. So each one of these actually is dated, and this is the number of times they've come and they've picked me up.
Wow.
There's like 18 samples here.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and like I said, every night I go to bed, I make sure that my sheets are clean. Like, I do not, make sure that I always make sure that I'm completely clean when I go to bed, so that I'm not contaminating my bed. And then when I wake up and there's like dirt and sand or grit, I know that, okay, this wasn't here the night before. I know there's something going on.
I'm assuming you don't have any pets like cats or dogs or anything that could be tracked.
Just a parrot.
Yeah,
just a parrot, and he's in a cage.
Not going to be tracking dirt into your bed.
No, he's not. No. And this sample here was actually from last weekend from Stargate to the Cosmos, when I stayed with Sue and Otter. And once again, when I woke up, I had all this stuff in my bed too. There's some material in here which we have not been able to identify either. So this has some very interesting stuff in there.
You know, I'm almost wondering if that thing that looks like a seed, maybe that's what it is, man. Did you ever consider just planting it like in a pot and seeing what happens?
No. I'm gonna take that to a laboratory.
Well, I guess if you get another one, see if they give you another chance.
This here is the stain that came out of my ear. That's one sample right there. That's the pillow stain. Mm-hmm. And another interesting artifact is this earplug. So the story behind this earplug was when it wasn't so cold anymore at night, I turned my air conditioner off, and I decided to, that I used that as background noise. It was the first night that I actually put earplugs in my ears to go to sleep, and when I woke up the next morning, one of my earplugs was missing. So I looked all over the place. It was gone. I'm like, okay, they must have picked me up and took me, and I must have had earplugs in my ears when they did. And so I asked some guys, you're going to find an earplug somewhere. If you wouldn't mind returning it, I'd appreciate it. And I swear to God, 2 days later, this earplug showed up down in my apartment somewhere else on the floor before my bathroom, and it was not there the night before. So they returned it. So if this earplug could talk, it would have a lot of stories to tell.
Right.
Yeah.
What are the chances you think there's some DNA on that not from you?
Oh, there would be. There would be definitely DNA on that. I'm just hoping that it's not contaminated.
Right.
I'm also going to show you that picture of that so you can see the handprint.
Oh, yeah.
1 second here. Hopefully you can see this. Tell me if you can see the handprint.
Here, let me change it real quick. Yeah, I think I could see it. It looks like I don't really see two fingers. Is that what you're talking? Can you point it out?
I see it.
Right here.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. This is not my handprint. These fingers are way too thin. So you can see my hand is. And this baby finger here wraps all the way around the other edge there. Mm-hmm. My finger cannot reach that. That's not my handprint.
You can't really tell on the film that I'm seeing, but how many fingers are there?
4.
4.
There's 4. They only have four fingers. So, can you see it now?
I mean, I can see it. Yeah, I can see 1, 2, 3, and then no, I still only see like 3 marks that would be fingers, but it's kind of hard to make.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. And
these fingers are thinner than mine, so it's a thinner finger. But this baby one, it starts here, and it goes all the way over and hangs over in this edge here. So, I can't reach my finger. Only with halfway. It's a human handprint.
Right. It's interesting because, like,
yeah,
that's not dust, right? That gray stuff. That's like the finish. Like you see.
This is dust.
Oh, it is dust.
This is all dust. This is like it's left in the dust because it's pretty dusty up here. And then one day I just looked over my rail, and there was clearly this handprint in the dust, and it wasn't there the night before.
Huh.
Now, I've got another handprint, or I used to have another one next to my TV, but that one, the dust has collected up so much now that you can't see that handprint, but there used to be another one over there, and that one was huge. And the fingers were literally 2 inches longer than mine. Every single finger was 2 inches longer than mine. I tried to match my hand up to it, and it was like, okay, this is not a human handprint. It's not my handprint. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you live alone?
Yep. Well, with the Ponte, because they come so often.
Right. Well, they don't stay with you, I guess. It's more like you stay with them.
My house is their house. And, there was another time. This is actually really cool. There was one time when I was sitting here on my couch as I was, And you see where my statue is in that speaker?
Mm-hmm.
There was one time where the speaker was completely knocked off the wall.
Really?
Yeah, so I was sitting here, and all of a sudden, everything went flying. It was like somebody had pressed on this cord, pressed it hard enough that it pulled this,
Wow.
pulled everything right off the shelf, and everything went flying off the shelf onto the floor. Like they must have, someone, like they're invisible, so somebody must have been here while I was talking. And they must have leaned on the cord, and they pulled this whole thing right off the shelf while I was sitting on the couch with my phone. It wasn't a poltergeist. It was one of them.
So, you've had experience with other ET races too, haven't you?
Yes.
Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. Where do I start? I've had 2 encounters with reptilians. They were quite interesting, actually.
Draco specifically, or do you know?
One was a Draco, yep. And the other was a female reptilian. She was more like, she had a body like the X-Men Mystique.
Gotcha.
Yeah, she was more like a...
I think she was a hybrid.
She was... No, hybrid, no. No, she was really hot. She was hot. She was really crazy. I might as well tell that story. That was very interesting.
You know, I've noticed that's kind of a constant in a couple of species.
What's that?
Oh, yeah?
That the hot ones are really crazy.
She was very little on words, very much on body language.
Right.
It was very interesting, and it was kind of had sexual connotations to it. Mm-hmm. So basically, there was one night, it happened before the Alien Cosmic Expo in Toronto, and I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was trying to go back to sleep when I was halfway between asleep and awake, more towards sleep. And as I was in that alpha theta state, I started hearing rustling in my bedroom. Like I could hear somebody had come up the stairs and was crawling, and I heard my duvet being ruffled around. I wake up and the sound was gone. And I'm like, the heck was that? And then I'm in the process of falling back asleep again. And then I'm halfway, just about to drop into sleep, and I start hearing that sound again of my duvet being rustled around. I wake up again. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And so the third time, I finally realized, okay, I think somebody's here. I wasn't afraid. I said, okay, I'm going to see what's going to happen here. I'm going to let myself go to sleep. And so as I'm falling asleep, I hear the rustling of the bed. And then boom, I'm out. And then I'm in this very, very awake, lucid dream. And so I'm lying on my right hand side, and I felt this female presence who was crawled into bed behind me, and she had her back turned from me, so she was facing the opposite wall, and she just kind of lied there for a few seconds. And I think she was kind of like, testing to see if I'd freak out or not, and I didn't. And then she turned around, and then she flipped me onto my back. And then she got on top of me, and I just remember looking at her, and I knew she had a body physique like Mystique, because she was long and thin and very slender, and she had very light green scale face, and then these blue, almost like bluish green, different color scales that kind of came up along her neck and along up her head, right, on both sides. And then she had this. Her head was kind of bulbous, almost like a huge clove of garlic. So it was kind of bulbous here, and then bulbous here, and then bulbous here. And she had this really cool blue mohawk that was hanging down over her face.
Right on.
And it was kind of like coarse, like horse hair, right? And it was hanging down over her face. I don't remember what color her eyes were. I can't remember that. But what I do remember is that she took my right hand, and I remember looking at her hand. She had 3 long fingers and these really like 2-inch long claws. And she's holding my hand, and then she puts my hand in her mouth like this. And then she starts sliding my middle finger across her bottom tooth. And it was razor sharp. Wow. Razor sharp. And I was getting really turned on. I was getting really turned on. And then the next thing I know, I flipped her onto her back. She somehow shape-shifted into a human female form, and then I woke up. So now I could have thought that was just a dream, but the next thing I know, like my other friend, Jerry at the time, he was also being visited by the Pontee, and he had better memories than I did. I wanted to text him and tell him what had happened. And so I pick up my phone and I go to Twitter, and I already see that, like, when you see the dotted line, like somebody's typing to you, he was already typing to me. And then I responded to him and said, dude, I was just visited by a female reptilian. And he said, yeah, I know. I just saw her now. She just showed herself to me telepathically. I'm like, are you shitting me? And he said, no. It's kind of like, like if you're in university and you go knock on your buddy's dorm, and just as you're knocking, the door opens and a girl comes out and goes, oh, hi, and then it kind of leaves. He says, that's basically what I saw. It was the same kind of thing. And then I saw a flash of her ship, and then she was gone. So I had this affirmation from him as well at the exact instant it happened. Like, this is 5:30 in the morning. We should be asleep, right? And also with the fact that I heard her when I was in that alpha theta state. And it was such a very vivid, lucid dream, realizing that I was conscious in the dream and she interfaced with me in this dream. Now, I went on the internet to try and understand what the heck had just happened, what was going on here. Now, I know that I had already asked Drudy to introduce me to some of her, other friends, other female friends. And so I guess I got an introduction. So that was pretty wild. And I think from what I understand with reptilian, that dominance is a big part of their foreplay. And so that's why she was doing that thing. It was like, she's on top of me. She's in control. She's making me feel her sharp teeth. She's in boss. And for her, that was her form of foreplay. That's basically what I interpreted that as.
And, I mean, what was her facial features like? Does she look human, or does she look more, like a reptile?
Well, when we say human, like, like...
Well, like mammalian features, like, round, soft faces, no scales, like, like Mystique, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or was it more...
She was a very human type form. I mean, she had a human-like body, but reptilian skin. Mm-hmm. The only difference was that she had a more like of a snout, and she had not a mouth. It was more like a what do you call it? Like a slit.
Right.
She didn't have too much of the lips. It was
kind of like
more like a chameleon. Okay. Chameleons have like their lips just kind of come together. So she kind of had that formation to her mouth. There was no lips. It was more like just like her mouth opened up. There was no lips, but she definitely had sharp bottom. One tooth. It was one tooth in the bottom, and it was razor sharp.
And so this contact happened telepathically. So, I mean, I guess she could have presented whatever form, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Whatever form she wanted to. She could actually look completely different than that, I guess.
She could do whatever she wants because it was in a lucid dream state. So it's kind of like safe sex, so to speak.
Right.
You can do anything. Your consciousness is also heightened because you're in that state of mind, a different state of mind. Mm-hmm. So everything was a lot more enhanced and heightened. And when I found another story of somebody who had a similar experience, and they told their story on YouTube, they described that too, where the sexual experience was so more intense because of the fact that they interface with you in this lucid dream state. It's much more lively. It's much more memorable. It's also safer, I guess, in some way. Yeah, but their ability for them to be able to do that, I mean, it's just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why it's so hard to talk about these things, especially to researchers who haven't had experiences, and you're trying to explain something to them that they don't have any concept of because they've never been there, and it's really hard to explain what you've experienced except through what I can describe as what happened, fact by fact by fact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it difficult. Some of these researchers will think that you're lying because they just they don't get it. They don't get it.
Yeah, a lot of people won't even consider like testimony from a person as any kind of anything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I want the physical evidence. I want the proof.
Show me the UFO wheel or whatever. Like, give me the parachute. All right, so.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to tell you about the Alpha Draconian.
Yes, that's what I was getting ready to go for.
Yeah, that was freaking crazy. So that was the Alien Cosmic Expo about 2 years ago, and I came to the Alien Cosmic. My friend Campbell Foster, he had this pyramidion set up. It's a pyramid that he built. You can meditate inside it, and he was doing a healing on me, and I was sitting in this pyramid prior to going to see the presentations, and he was doing some kind of chakra alignment, and the energy in this pyramid was so intense, I could feel it, that I felt like a waterfall of energy was coming down through my body and spreading out on the floor. It got so intense that I actually asked him, "Can you please pull me out of this, because I'm getting really dizzy?" And so he did, and my head was spinning. I didn't know what the heck was going on. But what happened was that my chakras were actually ended up lining up, and they were kind of doing this waving kind of thing, and they were eventually slowing down into alignment. Because by the time I got to the presentations, about 20 minutes later, my energies were just flowing so much through me. I felt like I was channeled through in a very intense way. I just felt like I was really opened up to higher energies. That whatever I had done in that pyramid really changed me. And so then MUFON was doing a presentation, and it was I forget his name at the moment. He's one of the researchers. He's actually gotten quite made his way up in the MUFON area. But anyway, he was doing a presentation on a case involved with in Burlington, not too far from here, of a woman and her daughter involved with some alien abductions, and he had his presentation going on PowerPoint, and he was going on about asking the girl about drawing pictures of some of the things that she saw, and you have to be careful of what you ask for because look what she drew, and then he puts up these pictures of the drawings that she had done, and here is this reptilian with red scales and 2 wings, and then he started going on talking. We're referring to the reptilian as referring it to like gargoyles and demons and stuff like that. And I was just like, "What are you doing? Like, this is a Star Nation being, and you're labeling him as a gargoyle or as a demon because of the way he looks." Now, I had never seen a reptilian with wings before, but when I saw that image, I instantly knew who it was. Don't ask me why I knew this. It was some kind of awakening for me that on a deeper level that I knew who it was without even knowing why I knew it. And I said, "That's an Alpha Draconian," and he's bad mouthing Alpha Draconians. And so then he went on with the rest of his presentation, and he was talking about a bunch of different things. And then he put up a picture of an angel and a devil, and then he went back to the picture of the reptilian, and it was getting kind of negative again. And I was getting kind of upset, thinking, you can't talk about Star Nation beings. This is like, cosmic prejudice. But I didn't want to say anything. But then there was almost like this telepathic voice inside me saying, well, if you're not going to say anything, then I am. And then all of a sudden, this presence came into me. And it was like, whoa. It was so intense. I had no control of it. And it was kind of like, that feeling when you go to a party and you drink too much and you are going to throw up and you're at the toilet and you're at that point of no return when it's coming up and you can't, it's coming and you can't stop it.
You've passed the event horizon.
The event horizon. That's exactly what happened. He came in like an event horizon and I was like, whoa! And I immediately put my hand up in the air and said, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. and then he's like, what? And then I start talking to him, and then my voice starts dropping really low, and I'm talking to him like this. And then all of a sudden, as I'm talking to him like this, my face is changing, and I felt these large wings on my back. I was completely changing physically.
You're breaking up.
It was like 16 feet tall. And I felt something huge in between my shoulder, my voice.
Poor network connection.
You cannot, call. Oh, yeah. Let me know when we're back up.
Yeah, hang on, man.
Yeah, you've been breaking up.
The Alpha Dracs are censoring you.
Yep, they don't want you talking about that. Let's see if it'll reconnect.
Actually, they don't mind so much. I was
right.
speaking on their behalf.
It's still saying poor
How are we doing here?
connection. Man, we were doing so good too. We made it to 10:30 without any problems.
10:26.
10:26.
Yeah. Okay.
You're back.
It doesn't.
Kinda.
Maybe if I cancel my screen.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, I think you might be better. Try talking now, Ken.
Reality Brief, your one-stop shop for technical difficulties.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
I canceled my screen. I think that freed up a little bit of bandwidth.
Okay, all right, cool. So basically, my body changed. I felt much bigger than I ever was. I felt like I was 4 times bigger than my body. I felt these 2 large things in between my shoulder blades, and then I was talking to him and telling this guy, basically explaining that you cannot call somebody good or evil based upon their looks. You have to judge a Star Nation by who they are. And I said that these are my people. This is an Alpha Draconian. These are my people. There's many of us in the room right now, and we are listening. And then once I said that, he immediately said, okay, I'm done my presentation. And he shut his presentation down, packed up his bags, and he walked off the stage really quickly. I scared the crap out of him. And then I was like, all of a sudden, I was only about 25% consciously there. I'd say it was 75% him, but it was the 2 of us who were speaking. And then all of a sudden, I'm coming out of it, and I look up, and I'm surrounded by 12 people. They had gone to a break, and I was surrounded by 12 people, and they're all shaking, going, "Oh my God, what just happened? Who was that? What just happened here?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. You tell me what happened."
Well, I think that that's a natural feature of the Alpha Draconians is that they tend to mentally dominate, other species that don't have the same level of psionic power that they do, whether they want to or not. We had a show with one gentleman who came on that he claimed that he was an Alpha Draconian who had reincarnated into a human body. But he was basically a Draco walk-in. And, he assured us, hey, we're very much like humans in the sense that we're all individuals. We're not a collective. We're individual beings. And, we're not all the same. We're not all horrible. We don't all want to dominate humanity. And, grind the Terrans under our boot. You know, a lot of us just want to live in peace.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's what I was feeling from this guy too. I mean, he felt, I don't think he would have entered me if we weren't on the same page, but I felt very much like I felt the same as him, and the energies, it was just an alignment of energies. That's what it felt like. I felt very comfortable with him in me. I felt like it was freaking amazing. It was just incredible. And on the Monday, actually, when I went back to work, I invited him back in, and he actually came back in, and I felt his presence again inside me. And after a while, I actually had to ask him to back off a bit because it was him who was on the phones. It wasn't me. So, and so I said, okay, can you just back off a bit? And so he did consciously, but he actually allowed me to carry his wings for another hour while I was at work. And that was incredible. I remember going to the men's room, and I'm in the urinal and with the guy next to me, and I was thinking, buddy, you don't even realize that there's a dragon standing next to you right now. And that's what I felt like. I felt like a dragon. The other thing about it was that because their backs feel like energy. It just feels like electricity throughout your between your shoulder blades, and that all this energy seems to radiate from your back. It's really hard to explain, but his energy was so different, was so alive, was so electrified. Everything was just so more intense. It was crazy.
I would imagine that invoking something that powerful to that degree would definitely have some major effects on your aura.
I would think so. Yeah.
All right, so with the remaining time we got left, I guess if anybody wants to call in, the phone number's up on the screen there. You can also, if you got a question for Kevin, you can throw it in the YouTube chat. But can you explain to me the Star Nation? Like, what is a Star Nation being?
A Star Nation is any extraterrestrial. It's just a different name. They don't like being called aliens. They find it very insulting.
It's racist.
It's racist. So the Native Americans have always referred to the extraterrestrials as Star Nations. And so I thought that was the most appropriate term to call them. And it actually is a very noble and great descriptive word to describe them. And so I've always been referring to them as Star Nations rather than extraterrestrial, which is really still,
So it's not referring to a literal nation in the star, of stars.
Well, I guess it depends on whether or not they have a planetary government. You could have, planets that do have a one-world government would technically be a star nation if they're a spacefaring species that acts as one political unit. Me being an anarchist, I'd rather refer to them as star peoples, or perhaps just off-worlders. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of nationalism, so, it seems kind of silly when you think about, all the people that have lived and died and dedicated their entire lives to being the temporary masters of a single pixel floating in the infinite black void.
Yeah. I guess there's different names that we can call them, but...
Oh, no, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I was just wondering if it was, implying something deeper or not. Because we hear a lot of stories on the show about different councils and federations and alliances, you name it. You know what I mean? I was just wondering if maybe it might be referring to something like that.
How refreshing it would be to be contacted by a species of off-world sentient beings that just says, "Hey, we're the free planet of whatever."
Whatever you want to call it. That'd be great. I'm moving to whatever you want to call it.
Seriously.
Yeah. Well, I just adapted the name because that's what the Native Americans called them, and I thought that was a great name to call them.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. I'd love to. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer any questions people may have.
Doesn't look like they're asking too many questions tonight. Let's see, we got some compliments on your music. We got Dan getting yelled at for not speaking into the microphone. Oh, I guess that Navy guy you were talking about. Someone commented.
Sounds like a normal Navy
does
guy.
sound like a normal Navy guy, though. To be honest, that's funny.
I mean, to be fair,
Stop being Navy racist.
you'd be surprised how many people don't realize that when you're in the state of Virginia, you can't buy alcohol after midnight.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Which is stupid, by the
So
way.
no questions for Kevin out there in the chat. It's on like a 30-second delay or something. So, but
That's okay.
You got any more questions, Dan?
Yeah. Where do I start?
You know, I had already written some questions that I wanted to ask. Let me see if I got. We already covered all of it.
So, but I don't know. Do the people of Ponte? What do they? Do they themselves have any sort of occult practices, or is there such a thing as off-world magic, or at the point that they're at, do they not even refer to it as magic anymore? At this point, it's just mental or spiritual technology.
Their technology is merged with their consciousness. I wouldn't call they don't refer to things as magic. It's conscious based technology or conscious integrated technology. So they've advanced so much, but they've advanced that the Ponte are very spiritual beings, and they're very spiritually evolved, and that's where the difference is. But they're connected to the Creator at a much deeper level than we are. They're all telepathic beings. They're all part of the universal consciousness. They understand that everything is oneness, that everyone is connected. There's no separation. We're all part of the same soup. They have holidays too. They have special holidays that they celebrate. They celebrate their official first contact that happened on their planet millions of years ago. So they have that as a holiday. When they do have that holiday back home, they will actually do some kind of tattooing on their foreheads, kind of like pixelation, but like make almost like they could see designs like the Nordics and stuff like that. Those, what do you call it? Kind of Celtic design.
Like the what are they? Yeah, see, I can't even think the Celtic crosses type thing, like the work.
But it's like done like pointillism, where like it's like dots and stuff, and so that becomes an art form. They'll do it with natural dyes. It'll last for a couple of weeks. And they do that they decorate their heads. They also, and as I said, their official first contact happened millions of years ago. So just put that in perspective in regards to how far we've come in the last 100 years with our technology. And then you have a star nation who is, say, just 1 million years ahead of us.
Right.
We can't even fathom
what things will be like in a million years.
Mm-hmm.
Will the things be like in a million years? And that's why their consciousness is merged so much with their technology. And that's why they can change from physical form into energy form and back. That's why they can walk through walls or take me out of my ceiling, and do all this other kind of stuff. Like they're or merge in a dream, or talk to somebody in a dream, or the things that they can do are just, it's crazy. And that the understanding of reality is so much more greater than ours. And that's a problem that scientists, if scientists cannot step outside of their 3D reality thinking, they're never going to understand the rest of how things work. Because portals exist, space-time loops exist, dimensional beings exist. We are surrounded by beings all the time. Everything is consciousness. And, and as far as I know, we're living in a holographic reality. Like the Mandela effect is real. Our history has changed. History continues to change. What is that telling us about the nature of reality if something that we've always known, that timeline has changed? I mean, I can go forever on the Mandela effect. I was completely freaked out by the Mandela effect when I realized that C-3PO now has a silver leg.
What?
I got Mandela affected the other day.
C-3PO ain't got no silver leg.
Yes.
He might have during that one scene in Empire Strikes Back when he got disassembled and put back together.
Oh yeah. Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember a silver leg, man.
For real, I got
No
Mandela
guy-
affected the other day.
I hate
Go ahead.
I did get a question.
I hate to break it to you, but like Star Wars has now changed. I don't watch Star Wars anymore because the timelines have changed. The Star Wars I grew up with, and I've watched the 3 trilogies movies, the 3 originals, 100 times. I have 1991 VHS copies of them. I've watched them with my kids back before 2012, and my movies were fine. There was nothing wrong with them. Everything's the same. And then I start watching these videos talking about C-3PO now has a silver leg. And I see all the scenes on YouTube showing where he has a silver leg, and the one that stands out the most is the Empire Strike or the Return of the Jedi when C-3PO was put on that, the Ewoks carry him around. Well, now he has this big huge silver leg sticking out like a sore thumb. It's like you can't miss that. He might as well have his dick hanging out. I was so pissed off. I was like, who edited these movies? Why does he have a silver leg now? This is ridiculous. And then I didn't believe the Mandela effect was real. And then I pulled out my VHS movies that were down in the basement and say, well, I'm going to prove that this is all bullshit and that that he still is original. Mm-hmm. I put on my VHS movies. Guess what?
It's changed.
Silver leg.
They've all changed.
Mm-hmm.
I ran into somebody that I could have sworn I went to like elementary and middle and high school with this person, right? Like somebody I thought I'd known for since I was probably like 5 years old. And, she's lived in my neighborhood for, I guess as long as I have. But I remember the house that her and her sister grew up in. And I mentioned to her that I'd, saw her sister not too long ago. And she was like, who? And I was like, wait, you didn't grow up? You didn't go to school? And she was like, oh no, I went to Lake Taylor in Norfolk. I'm like, wait a sec, what timeline are we in? Which dimension is this? Is this C-137? Is this D-145? Which timeline are we in here? Because something is not right.
I did get a question for you. What's your favorite experience with the Ponte?
My favorite experience with the Ponte? That was the Tea Party back at Ozark UFO Conference. That was crazy. That was nuts. A tea party. They threw me a tea party at the Ozark UFO Conference.
All right, yeah, I got to hear this.
Yeah, fill us in, man. Give us the
Okay.
details.
All right, so I told them that I was going down to the Ozark UFO Conference in Arkansas, and they were all excited about that, and they said that they were actually going to be there too, and I would actually see them there. And so I get down there, and I'm really excited. That's when I did that radio interview with Grant Cameron, and I told him that the Ponte were wandering around, and apparently I'd be able to see them at some point. Well, after the weekend passed, I didn't see them, and I was really upset, thinking, okay, they never showed up. Mm-hmm. What's up with that? I was really disappointed. It would be a week and a half later when all of a sudden this memory popped in my mind, and I remember because I was staying with a friend, and our motel had 2 rooms. It had a bedroom, and it had a party room. And in the party room, I had a long couch, I had a love seat and a sofa, and I slept on the couch. And then I just had this memory of radar jumping up and down at the end of the couch, saying, "Wake up, wake up! Where it's party time." And then I tweet to them saying, "I just had this memory pop up. Is this real, or is this like my imagination?" And it was in a private message on Twitter, and it was radar saying, "Dude, we were placing bets when you'd get your memory back. Yeah, we partied, we laughed, and you snorted tea out your nose. When do you want to do it again?" And I was like, snorted tea out my nose? What? And when he mentioned that is what triggered the memory. The memory popped into my head, and it started to come back to me. And I started to remember what the heck had taken place. And then there was something else that because it was Sue now, she was prompting me. She said, and radar said this and this and this. And once she said that, the whole thing played in my head. It was like a movie trailer. All of a sudden, instantly, the whole thing played in my head. I remember it like it was so vivid, like it was like a lucid dream. I remember it was the radar was sitting right across from me. Drudy was sitting on my left-hand side. Tilcom was sitting next to radar. And I remember Tilcom was talking about something that radar had done, and it was something about radar had done something in the hangar bay, trying to hot rod his skipper ship, the Delta Dawn, and something went wrong, and he's running around panicking, saying, "Help! Help! Help!" And then while Tilcom's talking, you have to understand they were talking telepathically, so I hear their voices in my head. I remember vividly hearing their voices in my head, and it was loud. It was like somebody talking inside your skull. And Radar's voice is crossed between Kevin Spacey meets Nicolas Cage. I remember that. I remember what his voice sounded like. And then I remember Tilcom being interrupted by this really deep voice that said, "Brinkman." And I'm like, I was thinking at the time, when did Spock enter the room? Because I heard Leonard Nimoy's voice. And I realized, wait a second, Grayson has a really deep voice. I couldn't see Grayson, because then I looked behind me, and he was actually behind me leaning against the wall. And then he looked at me to see if I recognized it was him. And when I realized like that the deep voice was him, that's when I guess I must have had a mouthful of tea, and I lost it, and I ended up snorting it out my nose, and I spewed it all over Radar. And then I remember I was laughing so hard because I had never done that in my life. I completely embarrassed myself. Radar is laughing so hard that he's snorting, and he's sliding off the couch. He's going like this, eh? And he's sliding off the couch. It was crazy. And I just remember seeing this Ponty, this Zeta, snorting himself off the couch, and I'm laughing my ass off. And then when we finally come together again, he looks at me and he says, "I've never seen one of you guys do that before. That's so cool." He said, "That's so cool." And then I just lost it again. Like, what? Yeah, my God, it was crazy. But the other thing I remember, not only do I remember hearing them speaking telepathically in my head, it was the feeling. I was feeling everything that they were feeling, because the telepathic emotion was shared. It was like this unconditional love and joy, this absolute bliss that was through my heart. And the only way I can describe that, you ever seen the movie? You've seen the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you know when you see E.T. and his chest is glowing that white, bright light?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's exactly what it felt like inside me. That's what I felt, this bright light inside me, and they call it a hug of light. And that's what I felt, was this warm love and radiating from inside myself, and we're all sharing this emotion together, laughing, drinking tea, laughing our asses off, sharing in this joy emotion all together. It was the most incredible experience of my life. And now I know why when people say that, they're in the presence of, like Ponty or, Zetas like that, you don't want to leave because of the emotion that you're sharing with them. It's so intense. It's so personal. It's so loving. It's undescribable. It really is undescribable.
It sounds like a blast, man. Sounds like you guys had a good old time.
It was.
And I had another question. I remember hearing on when Sue was talking to Sifu and Woogie, they mentioned that the people of Ponty don't drink or smoke or do anything like that. But I'm assuming at some point in their past, when they were a lesser evolved species like us, they probably did. So my question would be, at what point did they abandon the using plants or chemicals to recreationally change their consciousness, and what caused them to abandon that?
That's a good question, and I really don't have the answer to that. I know that they don't drink because it gives them major hangovers very quickly. As far as marijuana goes, they made it very clear that marijuana is not indigenous to Earth. It actually came from somewhere else.
Casa.
Space corns.
There's this
Space
episode.
corn.
There's this episode of Stargate SG-1 where they were basically buying and selling corn, but like it had some sort of
It was like super narcotic or something.
Yeah, it was like opiate, hallucinogenic, psychedelic corn, and like,
Oh, yeah.
so it was like a super powerful space drug. But you know, what I'm really thinking about is the use of magic mushrooms. Like this most recent episode or season of Star Trek had the whole spore drive thing. Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah.
So apparently there's definitely a link between hallucinogenic mushrooms and space travel. And I'm not sure what it is, but there's something about it that, causes the mind to be able to project between different dimensions and, maybe even step sideways 5-dimensionally into other timelines, other probabilities.
I can believe that. I can believe that because I know that, the experiments with LSD, it shuts down the rational mind and it connects you to higher consciousness. Grant Cameron actually talked about that in some of his presentations.
Well, I'm wondering if the mental and spiritual technology of the Ponti that we discussed, I wonder if did they have plants or funguses or other life forms that they ingested on their own planet that helped them come about to the realization of that level of mental or spiritual technology?
That's a really awesome question.
Maybe you should ask him that next time you see him, man. Let us know.
I will, yeah.
Well,
yeah, it'd be cool. Be like, well, yeah, man, use these. Here, try
these ones.
The blue jellyfish, eat them.
The blue jellyfish, yeah.
There's
this one slug that lives in the desert. Lick it.
Yeah. At least it's nothing like, eating tobacco like from The Simpsons.
Right.
Oh, God, yeah.
All right, Kevin. Well, I think we're coming right up on the end here, so I just want to thank you again for taking the time to come on the show, man. I really appreciate it. You got some awesome experiences there.
We definitely got to do this again, man. It feels like we've only been talking for like 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we did. We're in the almost 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
Almost.
Holy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the longest interview I've ever done.
It's 10:51 right now.
We just got here.
And I feel like we could probably go another hour, but man, I really got to get to bed. I got to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I got to get to work too. No, that's been great. I definitely would love to come back on. And if people have questions, I'd love to open the floor up to questions. There's so much that could be talked about. Like as I said, like the whole Mandela effect. I was sent down this rabbit hole, and that's a whole other story on its own. But with Nancy Tremaine, my friend, who we had that contact with those extraterrestrials we manifested, she actually, the day that I was sent down this rabbit hole to explore the Mandela effect, to realize that it was true, she actually wrote on a piece of paper a note that was supposed to be given to me. She discovered it the next day, didn't remember writing it, didn't understand what it meant. She was embarrassed by it, held on to it for 12 days, and was finally instructed by her ET people, give this to Kevin, it's for him. And when I got it, it was all about the Mandela effect. It was realities versus illusions. And it was my first telegram from Star Nations explaining what the Mandela effect is. I'm not kidding you. Like my life is crazy. Yeah, man. It's freaking nuts.
Maybe we can have you on again sometime to talk about that exclusively.
Yes, we should, because there's a lot of stuff about the Mandela effect that people should understand. Because it's not the timelines that have been affected. The whole planet Earth has changed. Certain continents are no longer there. South America is 1,200 miles west of east of where it used to be, and we've actually relocated in the galaxy. We used to be on the edge of the universe. We've now moved 80,000 light years into Orion's spur.
Well, because the whole galaxy itself is probably about 200,000 light years across.
Yeah, and we've moved 80,000 light years.
That's pretty big.
Well, any of the stars that we see in Orion are still within our own galaxy.
And Well, I got a bunch of questions, but we better save it, man. Because we'll be here for
we'll talk about that.
Keep going.
Okay, I'm just planting Easter eggs right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that does fascinate me. And if any of you guys out there are watching this after it's live, feel free to come back in the reality group and put a reality brief group on Facebook. Post your questions there. So we're non-bound by the fourth dimension in that sense in the reality brief group. So
we'll make sure we'll definitely make sure he gets it for you guys.
That sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks again, Kevin, and thanks guys for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. Got people on Twitch, people on YouTube, and we got in December. We got it coming up. December 15th, we're doing the mega show again. This time, guys. Yeah, I need to go to bed. We're doing the mega show again this year. It's probably gonna be 14 hours. All right, and if you think I can't talk now, wait till after 14 hours of this. But we've got a ton of guests lined up. It's gonna be great. So be on the lookout for more information about that. And we'll see you guys next time.
Ciao. Cheers, man. Thank you, guys. That was great. Yes, we'll definitely do it. Hey.